Welcome to the show. Appreciate you guys coming and coming to participate, man. This is gonna be a good episode. I'm over here taking some sections out of here and getting us ready to go. Yeah, what's going on, man? What is going on? Welcome to Code Talk. And for those of you that were over on the other podcast called Elevated Dialogue on the Uncle Junior Network, I'm glad you guys support our efforts over there. But this is like, my platform where I get to, run my mouth over here and follow up on any opinions that we didn't get a chance to discuss in great detail. A shout out to everybody that's already jumping in and, communicating and stuff. What's going on, my man over here? What we got? No question about it in the building. Let me get an 8. So here we go right here. Can't even show his emoji because of platform, but he's over on YouTube right now. As a matter of fact, you guys go ahead and I'm gonna drop some links over here so you guys can catch up on where to contact me personally. The brand is growing. Working on clothing, networking. Creating on behalf of the brand, man. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to get it out of my head and into a space where it can pay me back. Been doing a lot of authentic networking, and that's kind of like fits underneath the umbrella of men's responsibility to their family. Responsible men at that. Y'all gotta pardon me. I'm gonna sip this coconut LaCroix. My voice kind of raspy right now. And so yeah, today's discussion, is about responsible men and how we move, and mostly men that fit into this conversation are generally responsible men that are objective in thought, men that are capable of coaching, mentoring, being corrected, being mentored, submit to higher understandings, um, able to act within limitations and boundaries, possess stoicism, um, the ability to train somebody else. And, that's what we're kind of going to talk about tonight. We want to have a well-rounded discussion because we got a lot of men that have a ton of experience. But, I'd like for everybody to, pay attention to the fact that you can now donate to the platform. Yes, my YouTube is finally monetized in a way where I can act on it. And, you don't know who's prepared to support you unless you let them know. Let me switch my glasses, man, because they sit on my face a little bit differently, different kind of glare. So, for those of you that have been supporting my brand for a lengthy period of time, on social media from Facebook to Instagram or whatever platform you're on, I'd like to thank you all because the interactions have, put me in a good position to shift my platform and be able to focus more on solid dialogues, networking, and solutions with people that actually want to solve the problem. What's up, Liz? Hey, glad you can come over. Glad you can come over. Hey, this platform over here, make sure you guys hit that super chat. If you want to get something featured on here or want to market your brand, hey, you got to have an offering. Hey, I've been offering everything that I got. Hey, let's create a community on reciprocity. I think every community had to have a theme, so you don't know how much further you can go when you invite the right people into your space. Life is about people. It's about relationships, and it's about the currency of those relationships is authenticity. So I think that anybody that's known me up until this point has seen, like my growth, my transition, and I'm trying to professionalize the way that we solve problems so it's more attractive to solve problems than to dwell in complaints. So somebody has to take the lead, and that's what leaders do. That's what responsible men do, men of service, and men who have resources that want to see their communities improve. And communities aren't limited to your zip code. Communities about who you interact with. Like, this whole platform has shown us the lines of community are basically a choice. I probably talk to you guys more frequently than I talk to my own neighbors, and I'm pretty sure that's the same as you guys. If we've been on social media over 10 years plus, I'm saying, some people dating themselves back to MySpace, and some is far back, I don't know, maybe Yahoo Messenger. But we all have been connecting, in different ways for the same outcome from different lanes. Shout out to Liz, Gerardo from who I was introduced to over off the Uncle Junior Network with, her crew of people that deal with the, was it empowering, empathetic conversation? I think that's what it is. If I'm wrong, but I know empathetic is in there somewhere. But Liz, drop your links to your channel, in the chat, and that's cool too. Like, you guys go over and support what Liz got going on, and we got to trade work in the community, which goes back to, some of the responsibilities of, men in the community. So being accountable, being responsible, and not being a burden. There's a lot of men that probably don't know that they are being a burden. And I think the thing that connects men to their responsibilities is accountability. Then the level of accountability determines what type of leader you are. And because everybody is a leader, but not everyone is qualified to lead at every single level. It takes discernment, and it takes a level of objectivity, knowing where you fit, knowing where your limitations are. You got to know how far you could take a conversation, how far it should go, and relative to the outcome. So if you're trying to get a certain kind of outcome, if it's healthy or not, that'll determine your methodology. I think that you have to connect what your goal is and gaining the understanding to, you have to connect it to the relative respect, because people only respect something they can understand or conceptualize based on their personal experience and proximity to it. And we don't all the time know that we might be being offensive because we don't know the other person's triggers. So your personal triggers are your personal responsibility. I said earlier today that you have to avoid putting yourself in defensive positions as a responsible man. Responsible men don't put themselves in positions where, like, their safety is unnecessarily compromised for an unhealthy reason. Responsible men do not put their safety in a compromised position for an unhealthy reason, not deliberately. I get it. You get one-off situations in life, things happen, and you react to them, and then you find your boundary if you survive it or overcome it. And that's the lowest point that you get to choose. Nobody else gets to assign you to that. The responsible man recognizes how much further he could have gone, and appreciates how much discernment they have to avoid taking the worst route possible for an unhealthy outcome. And I think that if you take that approach and you try to start at the end and say, what is the healthy outcome that I'm working towards? And I think that corrects your steps, from the get-go. So you got to have some sort of principle. You got to have some sort of, code. You got to go get the book. The links to the book are in the chat. You got to have something that is your self-help that you recognize in your own language. And it should connect you to a higher understanding of the language that your moral code reflects. Because you can only have the relationships that you can afford, that your personal accountability gives you access to. And I think that's the difference between just either being cordial, disingenuous, nice, whatever behavior that describes, or whatever trait that describes your behavior. If you were unable to speak for yourself, so if you give somebody else a personal experience that they can reference you from, then that's the part that will always speak for you. We'll probably go through a couple of video clips at some point of things that are happening around the world. But man, did you guys, so let's get caught up on current events right now. Let's talk some current events. Like, I'm gonna put up a banner real quick. Let's see here. Man, a lot of stuff happens so very quickly. And one of the things that I saw that in current events, I usually bring up a current event that's in line with what's going on with the actual theme of the podcast or the tone of the podcast. And so the current events have to be relevant to the current topic for it to be effective. And I think sometimes reality is definitely stranger than fiction. So the strangest thing I saw today that would put anybody's responsibility on deck is, man, did you guys tracking that thing that happened in Mexico today that was reported? Or yesterday? I don't know when it happened, but the thing in Mexico was crazy, right? Like, and for those of you that don't know, there was a group of people from South Carolina that hopped in a van and drove to Mexico. The passengers in the van were comprised of 3 men and 1 woman. 2 of the 3 men were shot in Mexico in Matamoros, a border town in Mexico known for cartel activity. And the 3 men and the woman were traveling there to support her, allegedly, for a tummy tuck. Yes, a tummy tuck. Now, I'm thinking to myself, when I saw this story, I was talking to my cousin about it because we was trying to make it make sense. Like, how many times do you go back to the beginning of the plan before you execute it? Because you got to evaluate that. Like, how could somebody tell one of the 3 responsible men on that trip that it is a good idea to just get in a caravan and drive to Mexico to support their friend? I'm not sure about every single relation. Don't know those details at this time, at this present moment. I don't want to misstate it. But what makes people decide, hey, like I'm struggling with trying to understand how someone presents that conversation. I got quite a few female friends, and even from the perspective of just like, that's like a choice. I mean, I don't care if you was doing it in state. Like, you decide to go do a tummy tuck, man, that's your business. The less proximity I got to it, the better. I don't know. But in that situation, nobody took any type of leadership role and said, hey, this is a bad idea. In fact, I think one of the things I read was that the lady who survived this kidnapping, well, one of the two survivors of the 4 total passengers, she recalls her friend Zendel saying, I don't think we should go down there. And Zendel went anyway. And it resulted in some men getting killed. Men getting killed behind a tummy tuck. Allegedly. Now, the social media community obviously had is instant takes right off the bat. I know I read it and I thought about it, and I was like, well, still got an American citizen being shot on foreign soil situation, so you got to deal with it to just get the people back first. But when you get the people back, then that's when you get the full story. Well, when you lose some people, it becomes a different situation altogether. So if I got questions, I couldn't imagine the scale of questions that would, arise from the people that had to actually go recover them. And every time I come back to it, leadership is always the question. Somebody had to be responsible in making the choice to pile in that van and take that trip. See, leadership is the variable that distinguishes men from each other. Not everybody's capable of making a decision that other people are uncomfortable with accepting, even if they know it's the truth. And it's about being able to make the hard, right decision. And in this situation, because nobody had the ability to make the hard, right decision, now we got a personnel recovery situation and an international incident, all stemming from poor expectation management and somebody not having the same wherewithal and the situational awareness to say, there's a better way to do this. Because that's generally what it comes down to. I think men's responsibility has to be able to correct from a place of love. You got to be able to hurt people's feelings, because most people communicate from a subjective place when they're not responsible for making decisions that impact everybody else. I think that's very important to note, because some people don't have the capacity to make objective decisions. And that distinguishes men's responsibilities too. We got to start tying, like the basic traits that lead to healthy outcomes and healthy qualities of life to being able to make the hard, right decision. Make the decision that usually puts you in a position of being criticized, albeit unfairly, but the decision still needs to be made to protect everyone, because men are not afforded the opportunity to make decisions from fear. So men have to do the steps that it takes to avoid defensive positions. Defensive positions where you don't have the resource to, where you don't have the resource to get yourself out of a situation. Like, don't bite off more than you can chew. You know what I'm saying? This is the go where you're celebrated and not tolerated. And that's in essence what it is. Like, you got to understand how to read the room. Like, all of these things that I discussed that are repetitive, and it seems that way, but these are also the things that we fail at, that contribute to failure. The inability to read the room is not the trait of a responsible man. A responsible man knows how to read the room. I think that reading the room is half the battle, because you got to observe body language. You got to observe how people interact with each other. A lot of times we don't know what's offensive because we come in thinking about only us and screw everybody else, for lack of better words. We lack objectivity in some areas. And now, but when you lack objectivity, that's not a negative thing. That's a chance for improvement. That's important. Self-development is the trait of a responsible man. Self-development is vital. You can't improve your environment if you don't improve you. You cannot improve your environment if you don't improve you. And so in that, self-development is vital for a responsible man, because you're going to have to be responsible for other people. I think a responsible man is also defined by what he's responsible for. A responsible man is defined by what he's responsible for and how he treats that responsibility. Does he approach it lazily? Does he approach it as though it's a chore or a burden? How does he assume his role as a responsible man? And how does he have the ability to assert himself? Does he have the ability to articulate in a language that is digestible, helpful, and reassuring to those that are learning from his example? Because style matters. Being like-minded, you gotta agree. You gotta value the relationship and the outcome. You have to put something above you, and whether that's religion, the mission, whatever it is, you gotta have something, And let's see here, my man Troy got something up here. That is an escalation, as well. So when you are around vultures. Yep, that's true. Hey, Troy, you want to come on? Let me know. You got me. Oh, man. Hey, shout out to the Uncle Junior Network. Look at there. Hey, y'all see that? Man, look, can y'all just take a second, look at the super chat? I've worked hard to get this page monetized. I want to be able to bring you guys more content. I'm working on the Accountable Masculinity Spotlight, and I want to bring on, talented people. I want to bring people that want to win onto this platform to give them a chance to put their brand out there. Troy said he gonna come on. I'm about to get him up here too. Here we go. If you want to be on a platform, you want to have a stable situation, stable sitting position, well lit, and be able to come on camera, So, Troy walking to the grocery store buying diapers. I'll make an exception for him just because he's showing up, But like, we want to get it more streamlined. Like, I'm getting ready to feature authors on a routine basis, potentially on Mondays, so they give a chance to interact with you guys. I'm having a lot more. I'm making some plans to do more public interaction. Make the podcast able to go be sat down, sit mostly in a seating situation, more like a lounge with a good environment. And I'll give you guys some more details on that, where you can book the tickets. Uh, if you're local, you're going to be working with various social spots, so we can move the podcast around and get a good time. You know what I'm saying? In person with each other. But hey, look, see that right there, Uncle Junior? Hey, I appreciate you. You know, that's group economics right there. This is supporting the people that support you. This is what this is. This is what responsible men do. This is the culture of it. Like, if you believe that it takes responsible people to make the society work, then the responsible people need to resource those that are willing to take the lead. Like, some people go to church where pastors beg them for money. You know what I'm saying? And slide a collection plate around. You do it that way. That's cool. But all of us have goals in supporting our families, our creations, and we want to be acknowledged that way. Not necessarily compensated, acknowledged. Because compensation is the language of a transactional relationship. And it's the currency of it, right? And we all have to have some transactional relationships in order to function. Well, community is built on trading work and trading resources, trading skills, you know, without having to pull from other people, without having to push from other people, without having to perform for other people. And by perform, not necessarily in a showmanship sense, but people making you compromise your dignity. Responsible men don't put people in positions where they have to basically auction off their identity. Responsible men move in ways that puts some cushion in between them and the compromise of personal and moral integrity. Because at some point you gotta have some boundaries. You gotta stop. You gotta say, hey, enough is enough. But if you've given too much of yourself for sale, if you've made too much of your identity too transactional, depends on how you control access to it, is going to reflect the way that, you know, people value you or not. It's really what it comes down to, because people are going to do what you allow. And I think responsible men have to have boundaries. Without boundaries, you'll just be overran. You'll be overran, tired, and you'll end up dealing with more people that call you with problems than those that bring you solutions, bring you opportunities, enhance what you've already done. You want to attract people that's capable of enhancing you, because you're not done. You're not perfect. So with the idea of not being perfect, every day is another day to get better, sharpen your knives. Sometimes you get better, and in most cases, you always get better by simply just doing it. But you got to know why you're doing it. Some people just do stuff to just say that they did it. and that is that's not sustainable after a period of time. It's just not. There's only so much. So like, this is like how I operate, right? I'll bring this up later. You're not ready for that. That's the 4 laws of accountable masculinity. You're not ready for that yet. You gotta have something. Like, you gotta keep refining yourself as you go. You got moments where your traditional means of understanding in an acute situation, it gets challenged. You have to get creative. Responsible men have a level of creativity that's a resource also, because a responsible man that's leading or capable of leading has to have creativity, because every situation is not going to come to his convenience, but it will come to him in a manner that he can potentially solve it. And sometimes solving the problem is letting the problem is the law of detachment. Take yourself out of it. Find the most objective view and be open to the idea that as a responsible man, you might have to take a L. I know that sucks too, man. Like, we don't set out to fail, but responsible men know you can't win them all. Just like you can't please everybody. The can'ts in life are the boundaries that a responsible man understands. A responsible man understands that the can'ts doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You just don't have to do everything. You don't have to fight every fight. And some people, based on behavior, are not qualified for a response. No matter if you're right or not. All things are true. Whether we want to accept them or not, that's just on the individual. Simply because everybody gets up with their own perspective and their own start point, but we cross same streets at different times. Sometimes we don't intersect with each other with the same understanding. You might have gotten there before me, and I might have gotten there before you. Sometimes we get there at the same time. The same point of understanding is where we can agree that responsibility needs to be defined with the language of leadership. Because in responsibilities, the roles are clearly defined. The expectations are generally defined. I mean, we know that in a X, Y, whatever the variable is, it dictates the response to the situation. You know, like if you got a fire at the house, this could be on the stove. And if it's a grease fire, water's probably not going to be a big help. Probably going to make it worse. Feel pretty confident in that. You got to figure out something to smother it. You know, some situation like that, flour might be it if you don't have a fire extinguisher. I think that creativity is imperative for a responsible man, because if he's responsible and looking at it with a leadership flavor to it, then he's responsible for other people. Like when you look at greatest example I could think of most recently is the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs had a lot of beef between Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes, and well known, well documented. They were in conflict about the methodology of the play calling, the personality differences. And they were able to put all that to the side when it mattered the most to win another championship. Then Eric Bieniemy went on to get a coaching gig as a head coach for Washington. And everybody benefited from it, including the fans. Responsible men have to put their differences to the side for a greater goal. We could do it for the things that we think are important because we know we have to. And knowing that you have to, it aligns your being with the overall goal and outcome, the purpose of it all. You got to have a purpose as a responsible man. When you really look at the difference between the varying degrees of accountability is relative responsibility. And responsibility sometimes is relative to your personal accountability. You can't move forward in a healthy way without neither. You can't have anything worth having as a responsible man without a complementary level of accountability. And it has to be a healthy type, the type that brings you more abundance. So I'm gonna hang out for a little bit, and looking forward to some of the feedback. Let's see what we got going on here over in the chat. We got 2 watching the show. That's cool. I'm gonna hang out for a little while. Just keep running my mouth. Hey, you guys that are here outside of Uncle Junior, hey, go ahead and hit that super chat button. Support it. Let me show you what it looks like. Let's see here. Well, anyway. So this is what I want to feature today. And so for those of you that follow my regular social media posts, I came up with the reheated French fries as the title. Because nobody likes reheated French fries. Nobody likes reheated French fries. But the fact that they're reheated means a lot of people try. A lot of people try to reheat the French fries and try to bring them back to where they used to be. And every time you do, it's still a disappointing experience. And in that, you get a lesson. It still reminds you of what's important. So today, on the reheated French fries, we're going to feature the 4 laws of accountable masculinity. You either like them or you don't. Accountable masculinity rule number 3. This falls underneath the umbrella of responsible men. Rule number 1, men focus on men. Establish personal accountability standards among reasonable men that intend to improve our society. We're here to create solutions for the benefit of our society by only discussing tangible outcomes based on our skills and networks. Now, I have to come back to this from time to time because you got to have some guidelines. Because if you want to produce solutions, you have to eliminate the avenues in which people can derail the conversation for a personal understanding. Can't disrupt the larger group. And if you can't understand what's happening in the meantime, then that's when you sit back and then you observe and then you watch people move and understand that, okay, that's probably where I'll be better served, and waiting and watching and listening. We got to know when it's our turn to be out front. And sometimes being out front, you're not afforded the comfort of asking a question. You got to just know how to act. Sometimes we waste time by interrupting those that are ready to make the next step. So you got to focus on yourself. Self-improvement is vital. Like, these are just simple laws. There's only 4 of them. And Now, I've mentioned them before, but I wanted to put some graphics to it. Hey, y'all like my PowerPoint? Hey, man, hey, give me some feedback on how this thing is displaying. Can you read it? Do you like it? What's up with it, man? I'm putting together products, man. Look, I'm just trying to find a way to get this stuff displayed in a way that is easily digestible and repeatable. Let me know. We got accountable masculinity rule number 2. We don't argue with women. Women have their own issues, and so do men. As men, we can learn to mitigate our issues by observing the conflict management skills of women. Put a pin right there. That first segment of accountable masculinity rule number 2 is objectivity. Learning to look at it from the sideline. Sometimes you have to sit on the sideline to see what you need to do when it's your opportunity to deal with the same conflict. You get to watch people experiment, with their version of providing a solution. You get to watch how people deal with conflict, because you can make the same choice, but the people that you make that choice around dictate the outcome of that decision-making pattern. But I'm going to finish reading. By remaining in observation mode, men have the vantage point to avoid cyclic negative competitions and unhealthy conflicts with women. Men, you do not lead effectively as a responsible man if you are arguing with women. Period. There is no value in arguing with women, especially if she's not yours. If you're not in a relationship with her, she's not under your protection, your provision, she's not your mom or a sister or something like that, something that's relatable, you're going to have a hard time in life sharpening your communication skills with the right people by arguing. You just get really, really good at being disagreeable. You need to put the debate down and go pick up a dialogue so you can learn something. After implementing the findings from the observation into our philosophy, we should be better focused on ourselves. What's understood doesn't need to be said. Accountable men have code. That is it. That's just the point. If you're reasonable, accountability is built into being reasonable. And if you're reasonable, then responsibility isn't something that you have to harp on. But if you're a person in the audience that's listening to this, that's a young man or even a young woman, if you're constantly getting met with someone questioning what you were responsible for, and you feel like you're constantly being criticized, maybe you should take a step back and ask what you can do to get off of that list of criticisms for that person. It's probably time to take a step back and say, are they correcting me out of love? Or are they correcting me out of spite? And you have to ask yourself, do I want to be right? Or do I want to be righteous? That's why the need to be right is dangerous, which is why arguing doesn't solve a problem. Arguing is a step in conflict resolution, but the act of arguing is not a problem-solving mechanism by itself. It's a boundary. Then you have to decide if you're going to respect the boundary or not. Sometimes respecting the boundary is just you walking away. Sometimes respecting the boundary is responding in a way that shows how passionate you are. And some people confuse being aggressive with being mean or being, indifferent. When the reality is that you're just reinforcing your boundary the way that you know how, which is no different than anybody else. So accountable masculinity rule number 2, we don't argue. With women specifically, but we definitely just don't argue. Avoid the negative competitions and the unhealthy conflicts. In general, we got to get to a point where we're having discussions and dialogue, not debates. Responsible men understand what I'm talking about. This is very key. Because what responsible men have to do is put the outcome as the priority, the mission. And in the course of accomplishing mission, a responsible man that's leading also has to submit to the reality that he can't control everything, and he got to trust the people that he's corrected out of love. The ones that he's corrected out of love have to know, they got to know their value too. And in that responsible leader has helped groom and develop those people that he's mentored to make the right decision when he is not there. You got to trust that he put an objective level of moral compass in the mix. So when people run into a situation where they don't have every answer, they got to be comfortable with saying, I don't know. Can you teach me? I'm willing to listen if you help me understand this. I'm willing to trade my talents. And sometimes your talent is shutting up. So let me read this. Decentralized leadership requires knowing when to lead and when to follow. Must avoid misrepresenting fellow men. Although we are not perfect, we must have redeeming efforts. So when I was writing this, to go through it line by line, the first part when I talked about decentralized leadership was about knowing when to lead and when to follow. That's the first act of submission. You submit to what you have to be responsible for, and you have to submit to what you are unable to be responsible for. Men are fixers, and a lot of the times we take on things that are tasks that are, able to be accomplished, like possibility versus probability. And sometimes we overcommit because we don't know how to say no. Sometimes we're like that. And you're going to submit to something intangible that you can't control. That's just what life is. Just like you could do everything you want to do. And then you could plan for every nook, cranny, every negative turn. But at some point, when your plan meets the elements of the environment and it changes what your original plan was, are you creative enough to shift and still accomplish the mission that you set forth? And you can only do that relative to your resources. So your creativity is only as effective as the resources behind it. So what if you run out of resources? What if you run out of resources? And what I'm saying, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about money. You got to have something else to rely on. Money can't solve every problem. And that's what responsible men understand. Again, responsible men understand that leadership is the intangible. Sometimes leadership solves problems. Well, you can't solve problems really without leadership, because leadership is for emergencies. Leadership has authority, but not necessarily control. It can delegate control and responsibility. But you got to first be in position to do that. In order to be in position to do that, it's going to be covered on the next slide too. So knowing when to lead and when to follow, very important. It's very important because it's key to avoiding misrepresenting fellow men. It's bigger than you, fam. It's bigger than you. Everything you do is bigger than you. You're part of it. Vital piece. If you're present and you're active in the situation at hand, whatever the mission is, it's important. It's important that you support what's going on. It's important that you find some tact so you can have the conversation that needs to be had to support your fellow man if his act is in line with a healthy outcome, without having to do unhealthy things in order to make it happen. And I think a lot of times that's where that protection comes from. That's where that instant level of credibility and reassurance that responsible men have amongst themselves. I can't misrepresent the people that appreciate what I do. You're not going to see me caught up in some kind of scandal involving, like some of the hottest topics possible, and not with no type of, not intentionally, obviously, because anybody can frame anything around anybody's name. Anybody can. So I think that the work that you do every day aligns you with the people that reflect your personal accountability. And I think that if you do it that way, if you live that way, you won't have to worry about misrepresenting men. Other people will see you as a representation. Other people will see he's responsible for himself, and he's responsible for his alignment. He submits to something higher than himself, and you can tell it. You don't know what it is. Doesn't mean it's self-serving or nothing like that. It's just that you don't get to know every single thing. What you got to do is look at a person's actions, because if actions speak louder than words, then what are you saying when you're doing? Because if you're a human being, you should be a human doing. So what are you doing? Are your behaviors and actions aligned with responsible men? Would responsible men look at your behavior and make decisions off your behavior pattern? Understand that a responsible man is not afforded the opportunity to run away from responsibility. You don't get to be irresponsible and successful as a irresponsible man. One cancels the other. That makes you an opportunist. An opportunist. That's a transactional person, because if you are of service, then you have to respect leadership. You have to respect someone that has done something on behalf of other people and has willingly put themselves in position to be criticized, even when they were right. And if they make a mistake, the weight of the mistake has to be considered. Because everybody makes mistakes, but what's the weight of the mistake? And that's why I said, although we're not perfect, we must have redeeming efforts. Because leadership is not easy. Leadership requires overthinking. It shouldn't, but it does. Because we have to keep having discussions about submission, distracted conversations from people that don't have experience, people that have never led anything, taking constructive criticism from people that haven't constructed anything. Those people that do those things, that behave in that way, they slow us down. I was having a discussion today with one of my friends that's not on social media that basically reviews, objectively from as best as possible. Obviously, we have a relationship, but he criticizes, my work in a healthy way. He observes other people and how they respond to me, because I know I need another set of eyes that cares about me being successful. So I got to be open to criticism. And in that act, in me making a request like that, I have to be open, receptive, and coachable to the feedback that I ask for so I can be better. All of us submit to something. Because if you want something, you have to trade something to get it. You have to trade submission to get understanding. Nothing is more objective than saying, hey, I can't do this, but I want to help. Show me how to help you. When was the last time that any of you that's watching said that to somebody else? Think about the last time you said, I do not know how. And you said that to somebody and they said, don't worry about it, I got you. Because again, problem, solutions, and opportunities. And a lot of times, and when I say problem, solution, opportunities, people fall into one of those three categories. How many people that call you that fit into those categories can show you how to do something? How many of those people can you submit to that fit into those categories that you would willingly say, I don't know this, or this is what I'm trying to do. How do you view it? Everything that's in your brain is compatible to what you understand. Same is true for the other person, which is why all things are true. Whether they're compatible or not, that comes out in the testing phase. The testing phase is life. The testing phase is, just random interactions, surprise situations, just different varying degrees of triggers. Everybody has triggers. They're your responsibility. So accountable masculinity, rule number 3, decentralized leadership. Knowing when to lead and when to follow. This is what submission is. Okay. Moving on. Accountable masculinity, rule number 4. Legacy and equity. Live a life of service towards your community and others. You must be credible and capable of both mentoring and being mentored. You must be receptive and coachable. Being able to instill knowledge and wisdom into others is an act of submission and a privilege. When I was writing this stuff, I was like, how do I wrap it up? How do I capture everything from the top? Like, rule number 1, being focused on me. Number 2, don't argue. Number 3, decentralized leadership. try to package it in a way where when I say men focus on men, that means focus on yourself, obviously. And then when you focus on yourself, you become of value to others because you demonstrated responsibility with self. So that was just rule number one. And in any situation when you find yourself struggling, you always go back to rule number one. Rule number one shouldn't be starting over. Rule number one should be refocusing. Because starting over sounds like quitting to some people that don't have the same level of resilience. And having 4 rules such as this allows you to quickly orient yourself, quickly get focused. Because every time you try something again, you're building up a level of resiliency that other people do not have. You could sell resiliency. As a matter of fact, that wouldn't be bad if it was a name for a coffee or something, whatever. But living a life of service towards your community and others. Towards your community, it ain't your zip code. Your community is where you are appreciated and understood and valued. You valued for your experience, you know? And in that being valued for your experience, you have to be able to articulate that through training, through mentorship, through making somebody else's life, enhancing somebody else's life in a healthy way. Because if you look at it, your visible service and being able to show your work in your community through those that have a like-minded set of principles that align with yours, and they may not even be the same, or even they are the same, may have different language, but they do the job. They do the job that creates the space for you guys to work together and build better relationships with folks that reflect the outcomes that you're working for. If we're traveling in the same direction, then we should work together. If we're traveling in the same direction, we should work together. I plan on, doing the best I can to get old, in a healthy way. I want other people around me that want the same thing. So in order for that to happen, again, it's being able to submit to a higher understanding. You got to be credible and capable of both mentoring and being mentored. Credible, it just speaks for itself, right? If you're responsible, you have a level of credibility that's associated with you getting the opportunity to lead other people. There's an instant level of credibility that's implied when you're responsible. There's varying degrees of it. You got team level, management level, regional level. Same way corporations are put together. The person at the national level of leadership for a specific situation has a level of experience, generally speaking, or knowledge. Maybe not necessarily knowledge, but sometimes it's experience that, when combined properly, makes them more fit and more credible because they can show their work. So if you experiencing a lot of dissatisfaction with people not respecting with the work that you put in, maybe not displaying it the way that other people can respect it. And that's not the time for you to throw a tantrum. That's the time for you to be creative. Again, being responsible, Being responsible implies that you're also creative again, right? So you have to find a way to display your credibility in such a manner that they can't overlook it. And then, of course, when you're credible, that doesn't mean that nobody can tell you anything. The credible part allows you to take a break and let somebody else show you something. That's like when you make a personal development decision to take on some new training to enhance something that you already do. Because how are you going to enhance? Because you're not going to stop being responsible. So education is always key. Personal development is paramount. It's the only thing that matters. When you become responsible, you never stop looking to make more efficient decisions. You just don't, because you see the benefit of it and you're planning multiple steps in advance. So that's why you still have to be receptive and coachable, because you got to be able to learn and you got to be able to be corrected, because you can be receptive. That's the capacity to learn, the willingness anyway. Coachable, you got to be corrected. Coachable means you can operate on your own. But if you get out of line, that's different than getting out of bounds. When you get out of line, you get corrected. You get out of bounds, you're out of the play. You can't win if you're out of bounds. You just can't. Because you can't play if you're out of bounds. You can't participate if you're out of bounds. You can get out of line, but getting out of line is the boundary. And somebody pushes you back in bounds. Well, it keeps you from going out of bounds, rather. Receptive and coachable. You're not afforded the opportunity to stop learning. This is why legacy and equity are the words I chose to be the bookends of the life that you've lived out loud as you showed your work to those that are looking for someone to emulate, someone that's credible to emulate. Because we are the leaders that we complained that we were without. Somebody has to become that. Responsible men know nobody's coming to save you. They all know that. You have to be prepared to be disagreed with, be interrupted, because nobody's interrupted more than responsible men. Interrupted by the people that you are responsible for. And this is where stoicism, this is where reading the room, this is where all of that counts. Because by the time you get to rule number 4, you'd have met some disrespect. Different tiers of it. Different tiers of disrespect. Man, you think about how many times you've been told no. Think about how many times you've been told no. Think about how many times you've been challenged on something that you have absolute experience. Think about how many times you've been challenged by somebody that's never done anything that you've done. Never been responsible for anybody else, never led anything. And then when you bring up accountable masculinity rule number 4 and talk about legacy and equity, what's in between the bookends of legacy and equity for you, for them? When they stop and they get a chance, when those that know you stop and get a chance to speak on how you impacted others, because that's what life is about. It's about impacting people in a healthy way. That's it. That's really it. Like, impacting people in a healthy way is the key to success and experiencing life and everything that life has to offer. Your relationships have to be as accountable as you are in order for you to benefit from it. Being receptive and coachable is part of that process. And again, being able to instill knowledge and wisdom into others is an act of submission and a privilege. Because plenty of people know how to do something. That doesn't mean they know how to instruct people. You got to have patience when you have the ability or you've been called to service to teach in some way, shape, or form. This is where all of that personal development, the training, the resiliency, the understanding, the tiers of disrespect, the being able to diffuse a debate and create incentive to engage in a dialogue. Again, reading the room, understanding that when you read sometimes reading the room is you asserting yourself. Wise people have been disrespected. Wise people have endured disrespect. People who have not accounted for their emotions and their emotional reactions and responses to the same situations have not reached wisdom yet. Those people are still dealing with subjective reality. They're dealing with the laws of utopia. If you find yourself constantly trying to convince someone or looking for an opportunity to be disagreeable, you have to look for opportunities to be disagreeable. I think when you have your personal peace and understanding, you can acknowledge something that you don't agree with in its entirety. But you have a clock in your head about how long you're going to commit your energy to making a point that really only amounts to you trying to take away somebody else's reality to make yours more important. That's why platforms like Code Talk exist, because sometimes I definitely can speak at length about what I'm talking about, because simply just off of my background and the work that I've done to create this conversation that I believe in, that I believe is necessary. That's why I wrote this book specifically. This is why I dedicate the extra time to building authentic connections with people and getting them to understand that there's something that's inside of you that you can create that other people will be inspired by. This is what legacy and equity is about, and it's a privilege. It really is. I think that it's just more fulfilling when you see something that came from deep in your subconscious, made its way to your creation space in your brain, your creativity area. And then it comes out in your actions, it comes out in your behavior, it comes out in your talents, it comes out in other people's conversations, because if you've had a chance to be around them and you're doing it from an authentic place, they take your authenticity to another level. And all my conversations are designed to provoke an infectious level of inspiration on something healthy. We've been celebrating the wrong people. We've been celebrating people that when they put legacy and equity bookends on their work, you got to ask, did your overall life improve? You know what I'm saying? From their contribution. And hopefully those people that put that effort out there that fit what I'm saying did it the right way. You know, I think that's vital, because repetition on something that you're good at is necessary to complete something. Then after you complete it, you have to stand on it. And when you stand on it, you got to be prepared to be passionate, because you want to solve the problem. So you have to put down the debate sword and pick up the one about dialogue. And the one that's about dialogue is the one that creates the atmosphere for people of value, people of a level of equal passion for seeing the same thing that you want. I think you get a community of passionate people once you got the philosophy of what we're trying to accomplish identified. I think that when you really look at the overall goal of having a detailed conversation about why we choose the words that we choose, and when we do, you have to figure, does this align with a reasonable outcome? And now we can have a better conversation. Excuse me, I got some. Now we have a better conversation that's easily transferable to multiple people. Easily transferable. Because once you understand that your triggers are your responsibility, and you pair that with men focus on men, now you can't blow up. Because if you focus on yourself, you learn to manage your triggers. We already talked about you can't argue with women. Let me back up. We already talked about you can't argue with women. If you're arguing, you're not listening. If you're arguing, you're not winning. If you're arguing, you're not being productive. If you're arguing, you are not creating inspiration. Arguments do not create sustainable inspiration. They just don't. Which is why, if you focused on rule number one in managing your triggers, you avoid situations that put you in defensive positions, and you can skip the argument. And then now we can get right down to, what's my role? What's my role in the big pictures? What's my role in the strategic layout of where I can contribute the most? You can say, okay, once I know what my role is and what my value is, rather, then I can decide the role based on the level of leadership that my personal accountability can afford to access. And then we get all the way here to rule number 4. Again, the legacy and equity piece. See, this is a cycle. This is a healthy cycle of personal development. These are cycles of self-improvement that organizations train by. They don't leave room for failure. They leave room for improvement. Big difference. Do not leave room for failure. You leave room for improvement. Because in all of this, we didn't say that it was foolproof. It's a start point. It is a foundation that's built on healthy people participating in a healthy objective and a healthy mission. You gotta have something to repeat that keeps you oriented very quickly. Once you are meeting certain benchmarks, then you know that you've improved because you have less conversations that are rooted in subjective outcomes, subjective feelings, selfish outcomes. You stop. Everybody starts winning when you get out of your feelings. You have to turn your personal experiences into half of the equation that goes with your feelings, and that gives you emotional intelligence and instincts going forward. Because your ability to read the room can never slack. You always have to know what's going on. You have to be included. You have to be in the mix. You have to be present. If a man ain't present, then what is he? You know what I'm saying? Like, because the best ability is availability. You can't win if you're not there. You can't lead if you're not there. You cannot lead if you're not there in some type of way, shape, or form, whether it be physically, doctrinally, and from a level of just personal experience that you have shared with other people. There has to be some transparency and responsible leadership too. I didn't mention that, but I am mentioning it now, obviously. But like, you just try to nail down how many different attributes it takes for a man to be deemed credible. Because a lot of people are responsible for something, but they're not necessarily credible. All leadership is ineffective, and leadership is only effective as the ability to communicate. Effective leadership, it has to come from a transparent place. You have to be able to show this is why showing your work is important, because somebody's going to see you as a super accomplished person, but they don't know how many mistakes you made before you could show them the W. They don't know. Because nobody came to get you out of your situation. You had to make it a point to get you out of your own situation. And when you get yourself out of your situation, you had some laws, you had some codes, you had something that helped you. And when that person comes to you seeking something to offer, seeking something to trade to gain access to your level of understanding, it's up to you to be able to submit to their understanding so you can teach them. Responsible men have the ability to articulate a healthy message. Responsible men have the obligation to articulating their leadership in a digestible way that can be easily repeated by those that are submissive to that person's understanding of the larger outcome and goal. Then they have to submit to the fact that somebody has to teach them. It doesn't just appear. Because if it did, your behavior wouldn't allow you to recognize that that's what's happening. Like you're being taught something. You're being taught that you can't win them all. That's really it. You cannot have it all. That's why you got to have rules and boundaries. You're being taught probability versus possibility. And all these things you're being taught are relative to intellectual resource, understanding of the world, history, economics, other people's start points, backgrounds, their priorities not lining up with your expectations. There's so many things that go into why we are why we have room for improvement in connecting the understanding with the behavior. Connecting the understanding with the behavior. All of that is the essence of being able to read the room. Because if you can read the room, you got to be able to lead the room too at any given time. If you can't read it, how you gonna lead it? That's a bar. Clip that. I'm gonna have to come back and, you know what I'm saying, say something on that. But hey man, look, I've been running my mouth for a minute, and we getting to the end of this. Hey, men have code, bro. That's just it. That's just it. Men have code. And it's just built into us. Responsible men have code. Responsible men have code, man. Like, I can't say it enough. I'm dropping the link right now in the chat for where you guys can go purchase the book. Go to my Shopify store. I'm going to put it up on the screen anyway. So, responsible men have code. That's really it, man. When it comes down to it, you can't get anything done without a level of understanding of body language, written language, understanding the voice inflection, the outcome, the people involved, and the variables of the environment. Read the room. Read the room. Men have code because we are not afforded the opportunity to not know the answer. We are not. We are not afforded the opportunity to pretend that we know the answer. Too many people are in our charter, our responsibility, to too many men and too many people in general are in our care for us not to read the room. So that's the essence of why men have to have code. If you're going to lead from a responsible place, you have to have a different set of more principles that allow you to keep you, centered on what's most important in terms of the outcome. Yep. Men have to have code. We're not afforded. We have to have code before we even have understanding. You have to have a personal understanding of what drives you, your non-negotiables. Everybody has these little mottos. They say something very slick, to quickly reorient them back on what's important. And that's just, That's what it is. It's just code. It's not just a catchy phrase. It's like when people say, well, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. That's coded language for you to say mind your business, right? My name Bennett and I ain't in it. All of these colloquial phrases, all that stuff is you quickly reorienting yourself on where you need to purpose your energy. It's not just something cool to say. Yeah. Code keeps men from getting their lips slapped off. Absolutely. Shout out to Uncle Junior. You know what I'm saying? Look, and look, this is what happened when you contribute to the platform. You see that? See, we get a chance to highlight the 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 genius that goes into our community. This is group economics. Responsible men understand the value of group economics. We do. We have to, because responsible men try to keep things in the most efficient way possible. Like if it's already working, we try to improve what's working. We try to make it go faster. We try to go a little bit more deliberate. You know what I'm saying? I see you. I appreciate you, Uncle Junior. So let me. I'm gonna drop my screen over here. I want to show you guys my Shopify store. Look, man, I took my own selfies and all that stuff. You check me out. So we just got a bunch of these in. These for the kids. See that they real fresh. Right now, you can go right to the Shopify store and order these. And for those of you that do youth sports, contact me directly. And if you need your team to get some more sweats and things of that nature, we can design them custom color. You see the VV logo. Understand that this is high quality merchandise. This is the same Nike Tech stuff. I got a couple guys that's already bought my merch before I got the store together. They in the chat, you know what I'm saying? Hey, I like to also put out a request for those of you that have already bought my merch. Take some pictures, do a quick little video, tag your boy. The promotion goes a long way. That's what support looks like. I don't need no money. Although it's appreciated, sometimes we just need for you guys to share, repost, like, turn it on in the background. Just let it talk, you know? See, like, look, I put my own selfies up here. See, check that out, man. Like, you trying to get fresh for the summer? What y'all trying to do, man? What's up? Come on now. Why wouldn't you? Come on. You see the shorts? Yeah, that's on my back porch, too. Man, look at the little hat. Everybody asks me what the VV stand for. Mystery. But it really stands for valor and victory. Because you cannot have victory without valor. So that's what the spirit of this hat was when I designed it. What else we got? And then, for those of you that are responsible leaders, this t-shirt should resonate with you. Come on, man. Remember I told you leaders deal with disrespect? This is what I'm talking about. Disrespect inspires you. It should. That's why I'm here. Disrespect should inspire you. You see that? What do you think this hashtag means? What do you think YGMFU means? For anyone that's paying attention, I'll pay for you a shirt. All you gotta do is answer. You know what I'm saying? And support the platform. I got better versions of this shirt coming too. So the link is in the chat. It's inexpensive, you know, and I don't just want your money. I want your participation. I want you to be here for a healthy reason, just like I am. But yeah, check the site, see the merch, and this is the signature. You know what I'm saying? That's what you see in the background. I was outside. I didn't even care. I was happy to get my stuff. Look, check it out. Man, look, just go support the page, support Group Economics, check out the book. I'll throw it up here one more time. And then I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. Let me run my mouth for an hour and 36 minutes. And I hope you guys got something out of it, you know. Go purchase the code so we can have the conversation that goes with this platform. So we can have a better conversation that goes with this platform. For those of you who are interested in a private consultation with me, I also have my own consultation business. I'm pulling it up right now. I want you to see it. And you can go book your appointment. Yes, you can go book your appointment and have a better outcome. Boom. See that? Accountable masculinity consultation call. It's a big deal. It really is. I already helped a couple of people over this weekend. And you're going to buy this book. You see that? You're going to have to get this book. It's part of the doctrine. It's part of it. Let me read this right here. Purchase my book, The Code. Proud of my consultation. This product will make for a better experience as you will get to know me as a mentor. In the business of networking, you have to trade work in order to access the intangible resources that create a healthy momentum towards your goals of self-development and mindset evolution. You will be redirected to the link above to purchase the book upon confirmation of your consultation. Purchasing the book is required to move forward after the consultation. I've dedicated myself to my craft, and I like to show you how to dedicate yourself to your own discovery phone call to determine which consultation best fits your goals. Who is going to live your dreams if you don't? What are you trying to accomplish? Where do you want to be geographically when you are 60 years old? When is the best time for you to do a video call? Why should you expect success to be greater than your effort? How are you going to take this information and be of service to someone else? And are you willing to be corrected when it's uncomfortable? That's what life is. That's what life is. So if you're interested, book a session. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the link in the chat. I'm going to get out of here. Again, I really appreciate you guys. Shout out to Uncle Junior, you know what I'm saying, for providing the network access that he's done. And enhancing my experience in my role in my leadership. So book your session today. And I'll see you guys next week on Code Talk. Peace out.